What up, and welcome to the Wing and a Prayer podcast, a show about all things Seattle Mariner baseball. I am your host, Andy Wing. We are back for season 2, and I can't believe we're here. But guess what, folks? We've stepped our game up, and we've now got video. Year 1, figuring out the audio, figuring out how everything worked, and getting some opinions out on the airwaves, and we did that. So you can follow along on all the action on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and pretty much wherever you find your podcasts. You can also follow along on Instagram. I created this handle a while ago. I haven't posted a lot of content, but doing video now, stepping our games up, part of that is to post some short form content on Instagram. So follow along, and if you're into more shorter stuff, I'll be posting it on there. So this season, with this new format, we're going to bring on some guests and have some additional thoughts and opinions to just mine. So that ought to be fun. Find some good people for some good insight and content they can talk about. But we got lots of big show today. We're going to cover a lot with looking at the past, looking in the future, and talking a little about what's going on right now as well. We'll get into that in just a minute. Thank you for everyone following along and listening today, and even now watching. Welcome to the Wing and a Prayer podcast. I'm Andy Wing. Let's get going. On today's show, we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the off season. Yes, the frustrating off season. Talking about all things that the Mariner fans and myself were frustrated with the lack of movement. And then we're going to jump right into spring training. It's here. Optimism abounds. Baseball is back, everyone. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening at spring training, what's the early storylines and everything going on there. And then we'll spend a little time on hope. There's a lot of misery in baseball, a lot of failure in baseball, but we're going to spend a little time on hope. And then, to me, what's driving that hope? Well, there's some new leadership in town. Ended last year, Dan Wilson, Edgar Martinez. I know if everyone's excited about them, so we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to the team and what I think that's going to, how that's going to play a factor. And then we're going to spend the last little bit talking about up-and-comers. And maybe we'll even throw an Andy's rant back in there, just like from last year. So anyway, thank you for everyone following along. Let's get on to the show. Before we really look forward with optimism and hope on this season, we need to spend some time looking back. I think it's really important on looking back at what could have happened. And that's what I'm talking about, the off season. And I know all of you are like, Andy, can we just move on? This is like, it's so much pain. But hey, I think it's worth talking about. I think everybody's feeling the same way I have, and I've followed a lot on X and all the socials, and follow a lot of people who put a lot of good content out there, honestly. I think I'm just going to be echoing what a lot of you feel. But really, the off season, to me, the last 2 years have been very similar. This was the time. This was the year. Jerry had said it himself. They would spend when they had the players developed, and when the time was right. Well, guess what? This year and last year, the time was right. You have an elite pitching staff. You've got up-and-coming stars with Julio and Cal. Now is the time to add, and they just did not do that. Now let's walk it back a little bit to 2013 season. And the Mariners signed Robbie Cano for 10 years, $240 million. Everybody remember that? Awesome, Robbie Cano, he's going to save the day. We're going to make the playoffs. No. Looking back, that was a Band-Aid to the problem at the time. Everyone thought, let's bring in this superstar player, and it's going to fix our problems. Well, the team had not made the playoffs during that era, as we know, part of that 20-year stretch. And it was not just one player away from pushing them over the top. The team is scared still from that contract. They don't want to get saddled with a large contract over a long term. The fear, though, in my opinion, it's nearsighted. It's not big picture. This situation is much different than it was when the team faced in 2013. In 2013, the team finished 71-91. Well out of first place, well out of making the playoffs, not even a chance. The offense was poor, not surprising. Filled with players and past their prime and prospects that just didn't quite deliver. That team, you think this offense was bad? This is in a better offensive era. That team hit 237 with a 695 OPS. Anything below 750 OPS is below average, not good. 237, horrible. Their top two starters, Felix Hernandez and Iwakuma, were very good, but after that, pretty steep drop-off in the starting pitching department. And the Mariners overreacted and wanted to get better, and they're underreacting now. So they overreacted then, they're underreacting now. That team felt pressure. I remember fans putting lots of pressure on to sign a big offseason target, and it did little address the main issue was development of players. Now let's look forward to today. His philosophy of draft, develop, and trade has built this team to be a contender. Since the rebuild in 2019, they have 4 straight winning seasons and broke the playoff drought. They've had pieces, both winning pitching and offense, to be a contender for years to come. They have the pieces. They're there. This is when you spend money to add what you've already built. They're not a bad team that they're 5 players away. They got a great core. They got a great pitching staff. Now is the time to go do it. This offseason, there were deals to be made that were not even long-term 6+ year deals. The frustration with fans, and I think myself, it's fully justified. Yet, yes, they still may be good this year. There can be 2-1. They can also be good this year, but there can also be massive disappointment that they did not go spend the money and make the team better. Also, it's money. They don't have to trade away talent to get better. I know it's a draft, develop, and trade team, but you can spend some money and not trade away future assets in players to get those acquisitions to make your team better. And so overall, it's just ownership. To me, they're making a heavy bet on this team developing, getting better from the offensive side, that is. They're making a huge bet that this new leadership with Dan Wilson and Edgar Martinez are going to come in and shake things up and have a new philosophy and get the guys going in the right direction. And they're also making a huge bet that this pitching staff is going to stay healthy again. And so it's just a little concerning for me that I don't know that all those things are going to come to fruition. They could have a great year this year. They could win the division. They have the talent. We all know they do. But the frustration is just not adding when you have it built. This situation is completely different than the 2013 situation when they signed Robbie Cano. And yet it seems like they're still afraid of getting into that kind of situation again. I would happily sign a player like Robbie Cano now with this team, knowing what you have built around it. Spring training, all things new, all things green grass, the sunshine down in Arizona. It just means that everything is started over again. We can forget about the past, move forward into the new season. Even the frustrations of last year can just melt away, and we can focus on the guys that are there now. So I am excited for this part of the season. It means things are starting, and I just love baseball, love the Mariners, and here we go. It honestly just has me overflowing with joy, and that's all I can say. Now, you may be asking, Andy, are you going down there? No, not this year. So I think in the next phase of the show, next year we'll be going down there. That's my big goal. I was hoping to do it this year. It just didn't work out. But next year will be the time for this show to go down there, and next phase, right? This year we're adding audio. Next year we'll be down in spring training. So that's the whole goal. And, and I'm excited for the guys that are there. Even though we wanted more, us as fans can even think about other moves they might make this during spring training, a big trade that they could pull off. But, the guys that are there, they got to believe in themselves. They've got to just not worry about that and just think, hey, these are the guys. This is who we're going to go to battle with. And I heard even Julio talk about that, and I love that. Like, they've got to make that their focus, right? The guys that are there. And this team, it's pretty, like we talked about it a little bit, but it's pretty much the same, very similar than what they left off last year. A few guys, mostly on the bench, that are going to be there to, fill in. But so let's go through it. Let's look at each position and see kind of who's going to be there and give my thoughts a little bit on it. So outfield, same as last year. You got Julio Rodriguez in center field, the superstar. Randy Rosarena left, Victor Robles right. I'm really excited what a full season of these guys can do. This is our best group, the best, honestly, 3 guys in a group we have on the team. And, Julio had a great last 6 weeks of the season, kind of a down year. So can he carry that through? Randy Rosarena came in and did pretty good. And I think having a full season under his belt will be will be a good thing for him. And then Victor Robles was the shining star of acquisitions last year, coming over from the Washington Nationals as a free agent, and nobody thought he would do anything. It was an afterthought, and then all of a sudden he got playing time, and he made the most of it and was just a menace on the bases, hit 330. Just everything he hit was a line drive, and I'm really excited to see what Victor Robles has in store for this season. Infield, a little more question marks there. But Luke Raley, slated to play first base, maybe having a platoon option with Donovan Solano, who they just brought in. But Luke Raley will be the primary. And Luke Raley, I thought, was a unsung hero as well last year. He hit for good power. He played more games than I think he's ever played in. He had good OPS. The OPS like second highest in the team, just didn't have enough qualified games. So I'm really excited to see what Luke Raley can do. His defense at first base, when I watched him last year, was like, ugh, at times. But, Perry Hill's a great coach, so maybe he'll coach him up. But anyway, Dylan Moore, second base. Right now, that's the plan. But Cole Young may have something to say about that. We'll talk about Cole Young later in the show. But interesting to see that battle, kind of what happens. The Mariners actually have come out and said that they would like to have Dylan Moore not necessarily play there every day. We will see more about that. And then shortstop, JP Crawford. Big opportunity for JP to bounce back and have a step-up season from what he did last year. Year before, he did really well, but last year was pretty down. Injuries and other things held him back. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. And then third base, Jorge Polanco, our second baseman last year. Poor season, dealing with injuries, but now coming to play third base. The thing I'm most curious about is his defense at third base. Josh Rojas played a killer third base last year. We've had a really good defense there with Eugenio Suarez before that and Kyle Seager before that. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays at third base, and hopefully his bat comes back around. And the good thing about Jorge Polanco, when he came in last year, he was expected to hit third and just drive in runs all day. He's like going to hit seventh or eighth now. So he's not a fixture in the lineup. And honestly, if it doesn't really work out, it's not as big a deal as maybe it was last year, I feel like. And then Cal at catcher, of course. I mean, Platinum Glove winner, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. What more could you ask of the big dumper? I think Cal's going to be a fixture as a leadership in this team, even more so vocally, not just with the pitching staff, but just to me, he's one of the big leaders in the team. And then DH, you're going to have Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger, other guys fill in. I think Mitch Garver is a really good opportunity for him to have a bounce back. A lot of guys have bounce back years, opportunities. But, if they're going to win, they need guys to overperform what they did last year. And Mitch Garver can only go up. So I really think toward the end of the year, he played a lot better, and I think that'll give him a good opportunity. Mitch Haniger, maybe some outfield time, maybe some DH time. Didn't have the greatest year last year. Not sure really what to expect of that. But hopefully he can produce when he's in there. And then on the bench, like I said, Donovan Solano is going to probably split time at first base. He can maybe do a little bit of second base. Leo Rivas, second base shortstop. And then Miles Mastrobuoni and Austin Shenton are going to be outfielders. And so I think it's a pretty good bench, pretty deep. I think those guys are a little bit better than we've had last year. And so it'll be exciting to see how that plays out. And the pitching staff, starting staff, no changes whatsoever. Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu. As long as those guys stay healthy, one of the most dominant staffs in all of baseball. Big if, though, on the health side, because they've been pretty fortunate there. And then relievers, Matt Brash, Gregory Santos, Taylor Saucedo, Colin Snyder, Andres Munoz, others fighting. Well, Matt Brash missed all of last year with an injury, and he's coming back now, and they say he could be ready by mid-April, and he would be a gigantic addition to that bullpen. And then same with Gregory Santos, missed most of last year with injuries after trading for him. And so I think this year, if he can stay mostly healthy, that's also a big addition to the bullpen. So, and a lot of backfiller guys that we're not quite sure who's going to make the roster yet. And so bullpen could look really interesting, but I think a lot of the core guys could lead this to be a pretty elite bullpen. So next we're going to go into some non-roster invitees. So like guys that got signed as free agents that aren't on the 40-man roster. Maybe so I'll spend some time with the 40. What does it mean to be on the 40-man roster later in an upcoming episode? But so 3 guys we're going to focus on that are not prospects, but more of like veteran guys that they sign that maybe are trying to make a comeback. And so on the pitching side, Neftali Feliz, I don't know if that name's familiar to you, but he's trying to make a comeback. So when I think of Neftali Feliz, I think of like the 2014 Texas Rangers or 2013 Texas Rangers that went to the World Series and lost on that to the Cardinals on that ball that was hit over the head of Nelson Cruz, and then David Freese hit that home run in center field. Like, Neftali Feliz was on that Texas Rangers team, and I think he gave up that ball that went over Nelson Cruz's head. But he hasn't pitched since 2021. He's trying to make a big comeback, and so it'll be interesting to see how does that work. How does that play out? Does he have what it takes to come back? So we'll see. Another guy, Drew Pomeranz. That name also might be familiar to you as well. He's looking to make a comeback. Same thing. He's been out since 2021. He's just had crazy amount of injuries, but he was an all-star. Last 2 years, he pitched for San Diego before he got hurt and has been out. And he had sub-2 ERAs. So, like I said, both these guys, it's been a few years. I don't know if they can really come back, but they're trying. They're in camp. We'll see how it goes. And then position player, they just signed him a couple days ago, Rowdy Tellez, brought in to compete kind of for that backup DH first baseman spot. You know, this guy, I think of him from the Brewers the one year. They had a hot run, and he was playing first base, and he hit 35 home runs and 89 RBIs. Like, man, this guy's up and coming. Well, that was his only really good season. He had 767 OPS. He's been, like, hitting 13 homers, 210 average kind of guy, 50 RBIs at most last couple years. He actually played for the Pirates last year and didn't quite make it to the end of the season and ended up getting cut. So he's a non-roster invitee minor league deal. And if he makes the team, obviously there'll be a major league deal, but don't really expect much out of that. But, who knows? He might be a bright spot we're just not thinking about. So anyway, so those are the three guys, non-roster ITs I'm kind of paying attention to that are like veterans. And then last thing about spring training, this is fun. The green grass, the games, it's baseball's back, but none of the scores matter. I just want to remind everybody, none of the stats matter. None of it's going to be carried over. So if they're on a hot winning streak and there's a bunch of guys doing really well, it's not going to matter for the regular season. If they lose 6 straight and they can't hit and they're getting shut out, none of that's going to matter either. It really just comes down to the regular season. These are reps. They're getting ready for the season. And so just enjoy it. Try not to get too wrapped up in scores and results and things for spring training games. It's just fun for the fans to watch and get the guys ready to go. Last year, the Mariners made a really big move and fired Scott Servais during the season. And this is a guy who'd taken the team to the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. He'd been the manager for nearly a decade. And they replaced him with longtime fan favorite Mariners Hall of Famer Dan Wilson. And honestly, at the time, it made sense because they were on a free fall and it just needed some new leadership. And when Dan Wilson came in, everybody thought he'd be the interim manager. No real experience, never managed before, been in the Mariners system, obviously, helping out with the minor leaguers. And just everyone thought that he would be the interim, but they gave him the permanent role. And so it was kind of like, okay, let's see how this goes. Well, as soon as he came in, the team performed better. He brought in Edgar Martinez with him, and Edgar Martinez has proven time and time again that when he's been the hitting coach or involved with hitting with the team, the offensive numbers have improved. And sure enough, he comes in and says, hey, the old way of us doing things and what you were told before, just throw it in the garbage can. Simplified approach, see ball, hit ball, line drives up the middle is all we're going to focus on. Sure enough, offense becomes one of the best offenses for the last 6 weeks of the season. They go 20-13, 7 games over 500, nearly make the playoffs after collapsing up until that point in the second half of the year. So what was it? Was it leadership? Was it approach? But you know what? Sometimes good leaders make good decisions and they bring good people along with them to help them out. And I honestly think that was one of the wisest moves Dan Wilson could have made. Leadership to me is an extremely important thing when you're trying to build a good team. Whether it's work, whether it's a sports, building effective teams is not easy to do. And I feel like I'm watching Dan Wilson do it before our very eyes. And baseball is an individual sport, pitcher versus hitter, but it's very much a team sport in the same way. And a manager is a tough job because you got multi-million-dollar athletes and you got to get them all to buy in and just sink their teeth into what you're preaching. And so far, it seems like from what the players have said that they like Dan Wilson's energy and they feel like he just brings something different. And even just today, after USA played Canada in that All-Star Four Nations best matchup, Dan Wilson shows up in a Canada hockey jersey that he had to wear all day today. And it's like, oh, somebody lost a bet. And so, I mean, like, that's a positive side of him, I think, is really cool to see. And the players are responding well. The simplified approach towards the end of the year, can that carry through to this year? Who knows? But the players sure believe in it. Julio has talked about how that really helped him get out of his funk, just having a simplified approach, just trying to hit line drives up the middle. And he really had a great last 6 weeks of the year, and he thinks he can carry it through. Other guys talk about it too. So who knows? But the guys believe in that's what you need right now. And that's what leadership does, is they get guys to buy in, they get guys to believe, and that's where it comes in and it's important. I believe Dan Wilson will be, and with Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer, will be the guys to help get them through and carry it. If their guys are going to have bounce back years, it's going to be partly because of this leadership that comes in and gets these guys to believe and show what they can do. I don't care about the park or anything like that. These guys can overperform what they did last year, and it's going to be done through strong leadership. Dan Wilson, so far, shows what he has, what it takes. Edgar Martinez has a proven track record, and that call he made was probably the smartest call he could have. Edgar's not going to be with the team day to day. Kevin Seitzer will be, but Kevin Seitzer helped build a great offense in Atlanta prior to coming here. And with Edgar being on board to oversee and be there and just be involved, I just see this as a winning formula. And we've seen other teams throughout sports history with the right coach can do the right thing. And so manager in baseball is a little different, but I truly believe it's a winning formula. Spring training is another great time to get up-and-comers a lot of action, showing what they can do. So the up-and-comers the Mariners have brought up are the guys that they've drafted either at high rounds or high up in their rankings list or the Major League rankings list, and they're giving them an opportunity to come out and show what they can do. And it's an exciting time to watch that. We did this last year where we looked at the guys who are going to have make an impact on the future, and we're going to do it again this year. The list is a lot of the same guys that are just take that next year of step in their career, but the Mariners farm system is full of really good talent. They got ranked the #1 farm system in major leagues, and the guys we're about to talk about are the big reason why. And so maybe their major league offense isn't all that great, but the guys we're going to go through could be a big change factor in the future for the Mariners based on the way they've developed. So that aspect seeming like it's working, but these guys got to convert into major league talent for it to really pay off. So first, we're going to go through the catcher at Harry Ford. Former first-round pick. I talked about him last year. He's a number 65 major league prospect list, and he's a just highly thought-of catcher in the Mariners system. He's honestly been thrown around as trade bait, as the Mariners have found ways to try to bring in prospects to that conversation rather than get rid of major league ready talent, as they try to bolster their major league ready roster. So he's going to be somebody that's going to be catching a lot, so keep an eye out for him and what he's doing in camp, and we can track him throughout the season and throughout spring training. And then Michael Arroyo, shortstop. He's a number 98 overall prospect. He spent time mostly at Everett last year, high single A, and he's just a guy that's on the list of highly touted prospects that I want to keep an eye on, so keep an eye on him, and let's talk about it, see how he does. Tyler Locklear, he's a first baseman that last year he moved really quick through AA and then AAA and all the way into the major league level for 3 weeks. He didn't do that well last year, but it's as to be expected with these guys that make a rapid ascension into the major league. It's a huge chasm from the AAA level to major league level pitching, and it showed. He didn't hit the ball well at all, but he talked in an article just a week ago, since he's been back at spring training, about how much he learned from that experience and how guys go about their business and what it's like to play at that level, and he feels like he's becoming a better person and player through that process. So I expect Tyler Locklear to be on the major league roster a lot this year, and he could be there right out of camp, or he could be a little bit later on, but I expect him to be called up at some point again. Cole Young. Cole Young's a number 49 prospect, number 2 overall Mariner prospect, first-round pick. Watch out for him vying for that second base position out of camp. That position is slated for Dylan Moore right now, but who knows? I don't know if the team really wants Dylan Moore being the full-time second baseman. And I think Cole Young is going to put a good, put a good word in and try to get that job. And I think this would be a fun competition. Cole Young's never played above AA level, and so he just may not have the experience of the at-bats to really pull it off, but who knows? He's highly thought of. Again, one of these guys on these lists, and there's talk that he potentially could do it. Colt Emerson is the number 1 Mariners prospect and number 20 on the overall Major League Baseball prospect list. He played in single A Everett, so he's not going to be on the Major League roster this year, but he's the most highly touted guy. In the next 2 years, he'll be on the Mariners roster everyday starter, and they expect him to be an all-star. That's the kind of player they expect out of him. Pete, he's the 30th overall pick from the 2023 draft, same as Colt Emerson. Another middle infield guy that's played shortstop, now third base, so he's up with the team as well. Just a guy that's on their list that we should keep an eye on. The last guy I want to talk about from the fielders is Lazaro Montes. He's number 42 overall prospect, number 3 Mariner prospect. He was Everett last year, huge power, 6'3", 220 pounds, but looks like 6'5", 250. Just strong, fast, athletic. And so I'm excited to see what he can do this spring and just what he brings to the table. So keep an eye out for him, Lazaro Montes. From the pitching side, the one player I'm really excited to see is Logan Evans. Logan Evans spent time at single A and AA last year, and I would not be surprised if he pitched at the major league level. In his one short season at AA, he pitched in 22 starts, 32 games. He was 9-5 with a 3.2 ERA and a 217 batting average against. And every level, he's been pretty dominant, and he has pretty dominant stuff. He's a 12th round pick. It wasn't like he was a top round pick, but he has developed really fast. The Mariners have a way of developing pitchers, and here's another guy that's waiting in the wings. But we have an elite starting rotation, so it's going to take an injury for him to get in there. But I can see that happening this year. So keep an eye on Logan Evans. Those are the guys I'm paying attention to. Those are the guys I'm really keeping an eye on as we go through spring training. If you're looking at spring training and being like, it's kind of boring, there's a bunch of guys I don't know. Well, there's a group of guys that you can look and follow and track and see how they're doing as you're watching games, listening to games, or just checking on box scores like I do sometimes when I don't have time to watch the game or really listen. So follow along with me. Let's talk about it. Throw a comment at me when I post some of this on social, what you think about these guys and who's the best one and most major league ready. And we're going to end today's show with something that we did on every episode last year, and Andy's rant. Yep, we're bringing it back, folks. And I'm going to harp on something that I harped on last year. I'm going to do it every year, which is access to games. The Mariners, Major League Baseball, do not make it easy to access games, and they make you pay through the nose to access a product that some people may be right now feeling like it may not be worth it. So Mariners, Major League Baseball, if anyone's listening, figure out a way to let fans pay for streaming direct to them wherever they're at, all the games, not have to subscribe to a cable service. I had to subscribe to a cable service that keeps jacking my bill up over and over and over again, and I'm about done with it. But I feel like I have to, at least for now. If you can't overcome the cable systems, then make it available on all the TV provider systems, whether it be YouTube TV or Hulu Live or Xfinity, wherever it is. Just make it available everywhere so consumers can pick the best product for them. Instead of being forced down one pigeonhole, down one product they don't even like, want to use, I'm using a product that I don't like at all right now, but I have to be able to watch the games. So Major League Baseball, Mariners, figure it out. This has got to be easier for us as fans that want to watch your content, that will pay to watch your content, but we need to do it in an easier format. The world's getting easier with technology, not more difficult. It is easier for the consumer to pick what they want to do when they want to do it. And it's going to be the same thing for your product. So please spend the time, figure it out. If it's baby steps and you can just get it available on YouTube TV that you weren't able to figure out, do that for now and then move on to the streaming service. Because I understand there's contracts involved, but please figure it out. Hopefully I'm speaking for all fan bases here that want to watch your content. And that wraps up our show for today. Thank you so much for following along, listening, watching now on video. We're going to be bringing this video content to you every episode this season and going forward, and I'm excited for what's next on the docket. You can follow along all the action on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Also, Instagram handle, Wing and a Prayer Podcast. I'm going to be posting short form content, video clips from this very episode that you can see if you don't have time to listen to the full thing or you just want to watch little clips of it. I'm excited to get that going, so follow along there. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm excited to be back. Go Mariners.